Welcome to Wellspring Wednesday. This past MEA weekend, my family and I drove out to Chicago, Cleveland, and Pittsburgh to visit schools and to get a last look at the beautiful fall colors. In Pittsburgh, which is a really old city, we were really challenged by the streets, which make St. Paul look highly organized. Different members of the family took turns yelling out directions to the driver, who doesn't necessarily always hear that well. There were many wrong turns and wrong ways, and it was frustrating. There were almost some fights. But then, we also had some laughs, and we knew we would do it, we would make it, we would do it together. I know who you're going to trust more than the people you came with. And we did it. We got there together. Come, let us worship together. Each week, we ask Unity families to share their joys and sorrows, concerns, blessing, gifts, and challenges with us over email, so that we can bring the real stories of our lives into this place, so we can celebrate together, give each other support, and hold on to each other in love. This week, we ask families involved in this year's Our Whole Lives class to share with us. From Tara Koch and family Kurt, Chloe, and Hannah, our joy is snow. Okay. We are a Nordic ski family, Tara explains. From Nicole Linsky, John, and Aiden, Aiden's joy, it is almost Halloween. All right. Woo! His sorrow, there is still school. And the sorrow for the whole family, cold weather and COVID. Hard to go anywhere now. From the McCrady's, Kate, Rob, Owen, Eric, and Alex. Today's joy is that Alex McCrady's cast was finally able to come off. Alex broke his arm a month ago and had to have surgery. He was in a cast for the last 3 weeks, and it came off Tuesday. He is looking forward to regaining a full range of motion and getting back to riding his bike. From the Mary and Lalo Hernandez family, we have a great sorrow. We lost a good friend, Joel Mason, a couple weeks ago. He was our neighbor, our friend, father of our kids' friends. He will be greatly missed, and our hearts are absolutely broken. You join me in prayer. The season turns, and as it does, there is so much we know that it will bring. Winter sweaters, Halloween and candy, time to mend physically, and snow. We give thanks for the snow. And Holy One, we ask for strength, guidance, patience as we begin to move inside. Still trying to stay safe, still dealing with our losses, still going to school. Let us trust in ourselves and have faith in the bonds that we have formed to help us live, help us have gratitude, endure, to live, to work for a better day, and even the energy to go play in the snow. Amen. When I breathe in, I breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I breathe out love. When I breathe in, I breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I breathe out love.
In honor of the Boston pilgrimage that Drew and I normally go on over MEA weekend with Unity's high school juniors, I'm going to tell a small part of the story of Little Women by one of our favorite transcendentalists, Louisa May Alcott. Jo March was invited by her neighbor friend Lori to go to a play. Now, her younger sister Amy really wanted to go. "Please, Jo, will you bring me with? Please, please," begged Amy. But Jo said, "No, Amy, it's rude to ask to go when you're not invited." And Jo also wanted a break from her younger sister. So off Jo went, but before she left, Amy said, "You will pay, Jo March, just you wait." She was very angry to be left out again. While Jo was gone, Amy went through all of Jo's things and found the story that she was writing. Now, as many of you know, Jo March was a writer. She spent so much of her time with pen and quill writing down stories, fairy tales, and fables on parchment. Her dream was to get these published in magazines and maybe even her own novel one day. Amy took the story and threw it into the fire, and it burned up. Now, as you can imagine, or perhaps you know, when Jo came back from the play and realized that her story was gone, she was heartbroken and sad. And when she realized what Amy had done, she was furious. She ran over to Amy and shook her and shouted at her and said, "I will never forgive you." And Amy was crying, but everyone was really upset with what Amy had done to Jo. And Jo ignored her, even when Amy reflected on how much she had hurt Jo and came and apologized. Jo said, "You don't deserve to be forgiven." Now, days passed and Joe kept ignoring Amy, and Amy was sulking and feeling very sad. And then one day, Joe went ice skating again with her neighbor friend Lori. And Amy really didn't want to be left out again and ran after them with her ice skates. Now, the ice wasn't totally frozen over in the middle. The ice was really thin, and Lori and Joe knew this, so they skated around the edges, racing and playing hockey, but Amy didn't know this. And so after she put on her skates, she skated across the middle to try and get to Joe and Lori on the other side, and crack, splash! Amy fell into the water, the freezing cold water, and was gasping and trying to shout for help. When Joe heard the splash, she spun around, her heart racing. Lori was a little bit closer, and he dropped down onto his stomach so he wouldn't break the ice, and scooted his way over to grab Amy's hand to hold her up above the water. Joe skated really fast to the bank to grab a log because Lori couldn't lift Amy up while he was laying down on the ice. And so she also dropped down to her stomach, Joe did, and scooted towards Amy, clogging this log, this branch that Amy then grabbed onto and was able to pull herself up as Joe and Lori helped her up out of the freezing water and bundled her in their jackets and rushed her home. And after they had gotten home, Joe realized that her relationship with Amy was so much bigger than any conflict. In fact, conflicts that they had increased their trust. I mean, this conflict hadn't gone away just because her sister's life was in danger. It didn't make what Amy had done okay, but it recentered the trust that they had in one another. When Joe had handed Amy the branch, Amy grabbed onto it and looked Joe in the eye and said, "Please don't let go, Joe." And Joe looked Amy back, said, "I won't, Amy, trust me." Yes, the conflicts they had actually strengthened their trust. It was also true that they hurt each other in conflict, and yet it also brought out the best parts of themselves. Because when they sincerely remembered how much they cared about each other, regardless of their differences, they became closer. And they worked to act kinder to one another and to accept each other more fully as they were, through love. Yes, their conflicts actually made them more trustworthy. And when Amy was in dry clothes and wrapped in blankets by the fire, Joe went up to her and said, "I'm really sorry, Amy." And Amy replied, "I'm so sorry, Joe, really, I'm so sorry." And they were both sincere.
You know, you and I have had conflict.
We have. I was considering telling that story, Drew.
Big hug.
It's a gift to be simple, it's a gift to be free, it's a gift to come down where we ought to be. And when we find ourselves in a place just right, it will be in the valley of love and delight. When true simplicity is gained, to bow and to bend we shall not be ashamed. To turn will be our delight till our turning we come round right. It's a gift to be simple, it's a gift to be free, it's a gift till by turning, we come round right. I wouldn't say that conflicts I've had have been fun, but I can say that many of them, the conflicts that I've entered into well with friends, have become rewarding. Those are the friends, like Drew, that I end up feeling closer to, that I really trust, because I know that we can get through the bad times as well as the good. May we, especially in a time just as we are in now, view conflict as an opportunity, as an opening to renew our values and our covenant with one another and to become more trustworthy. May it be so, and amen.